Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I guess, 12:30. I got to get my time straight. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce offices. I'm Jim Rooney, President and CEO, and I have a very brief role of this welcome and expressing my gratitude to all of the people that have helped us put this program together. This is the second year of the Fierce Urgency of Now, or Fun Festival. We're very pleased with the way that things went last year, and we're even more pleased with the way things are going this year. Hopefully you've registered for some of the other events, because if you haven't registered by now, there's very few seats available at the events that are on the calendar for the remaining few days. We had a great kickoff last night at Fenway Park, hosted by the Red Sox. A big shout out to them, because in the spirit of this festival, the Red Sox in recent years have really done a lot to signal not only to people in Boston and beyond that we are a welcoming city, and venues like Fenway Park and other sports venues and museums are places that anyone should feel comfortable going. So I did want to begin with a thank you to the Red Sox for not only helping us launch last night, but the efforts that they have demonstrated over the past few years. And that's the spirit of fun. It's really to have a conversation with and about the experience, particularly of young professionals of color in Boston. Here at the Chamber, we talk about being an organization that helps all businesses and all people thrive, leaving no one on the sidelines, and making sure that everybody feels like they have a shot at pursuing a career, a family, their happiness here in the great city of Boston. We're very pleased that back with us today is the mayor of the city of Boston, who joined us last year for this conversation. Danny Monroe from Partners is going to handle the formal introduction, but I will just say that I've known this guy for a very long time, and I do know that every day not only does he wake up thinking about this issue and the welcome and inclusion culture of Boston, but every day he thinks about actions that can be taken that will fulfill that dream that we all have for our city. So thank you, Mayor, for being here and for all you do. And before I turn it over to Danny, I do want to acknowledge the people that make this all happen, both on our team, but also companies that have stepped up to demonstrate their partnership with us in trying to create the dynamic through these conversations that we're trying to create. First, on my team, the three people who did all the work that I want to get a big round of applause for are Sheena Collier, Justin Kane, and Hannah Zen. Now, part of executing these things, it takes resources to do it. And we reached out to the Boston business community with this idea, said, what do you think, and can you help us through sponsorships doing it? Thankfully in Boston, we have an enlightened business community that said, sure, this is a great idea, this is what we're all about, this is exactly what we need to demonstrate as a business community. So, I want to thank, I mentioned the Red Sox, Arnold Worldwide, John Hancock, Partners Healthcare, P&G Gillette, PwC, the Boston Foundation, TS&E, Mission Works, and Tufts Health Plan. Please join me in thanking all of those. So I'm going to stop talking because you didn't come to listen to me, but I do want to introduce from one of our major sponsors, Partners Healthcare, Danny Monroe, who is the VP and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Partners Healthcare. Now think about that role. An enterprise that has 75,000 employees, and the role that Danny has taken on. And if you don't know Danny, I'm about to introduce a force of nature. Not only has Danny led diversity and inclusion efforts at Partners, she's done it for over 30 years at places like, get this, the CIA, John Hancock, Hasbro, Pfizer, Novartis, Raytheon, Shell, State Street, and the Walt Disney Company. So this is a woman that's been in the trenches for quite a while. Wrote a book to talk about it, Untapped Talent, Unleashing the Power of the Hidden Workforce, that received a number of awards. Danny herself has received a number of awards, including YWCA Academy of Women Achievers, Boston Business Journal Lifetime Achievement Award in Diversity. But I do know that one of the awards that she holds near and dear to her heart is the award of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, which was the Pinnacle Award that she received last year. So Danny, thank you for all you do for our city, and I'll turn the program over to you.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for that introduction. And don't ask me about the CIA, because if I told you, I'd have to. So it's a pleasure being here with you today. It's always a pleasure doing work with the chambers, and this is particularly important to the city and to partners. And on behalf of partners, you know, we are really proud to be part of this event for the second year. The Fierce Urgency of Now Festival, in terms of bringing millennials together in this city, is incredibly important. And today I'm especially excited to have the special job of introducing our incredible mayor, Mayor Marty Walsh, a leader who truly gets it when it comes to the issue of making our city a welcoming place for all. But before I get into my official duties, I'd like to speak briefly about Partners, because some of you may not be aware of Partners in terms of some of the things it does. But we have a commitment to engaging and investing in important work around millennials in the greater Boston area and across the state, to address issues around race, equality, opportunity, and particularly for our young workforce and millennials of color. As the largest employer in Massachusetts, as Jim said, with 75,000 employees, I think you added 1,000 to my roster, but that's okay. We're working on it. 40% of Partners' healthcare workforce are millennials. As this generation continues to grow within Partners, we want to provide our workforce as many opportunities for them to grow professionally. So Partners knows, as evidenced by Forbes' 2019 ranking us as the 4th best place to work in Massachusetts, that as an employer, we need to provide opportunities to build professional skills and presence, not only within our workforce, but within the world. Our employees' ultimate success hinges on more than what we can accomplish within the walls of our organization. Millennials of color deserve to feel like they belong in the city in which they work, not just their workplace, so that they can bring their whole selves to work and all of that experience with them. Partners Healthcare recognizes that as a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce, not only believes that the daily lives of our employees, but also impacts our patient care and health outcomes. This is one of the many reasons why Partners Healthcare's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has expanded to work system-wide, which means 14 different institutions. And for those of you who may not be as familiar with Partners, in our system is Mass General, the Brigham, Spalding, McLean, Newton Wellesley Hospital, Southern Jamaica Plain Health Center, and many others that make up those 74,000 employees. So in the pursuit of excellence in an integrated health system, we are moving towards an inclusive organization for all. With that, I'm pleased to introduce our guest of honor today. Since taking office in January 2014, Mayor Marty J. Walsh has established a vision for a thriving, healthy, and innovative Boston, a city with equality and opportunity for all. He has focused on strengthening Boston's schools and leading Boston to the forefront of the global innovation economy, both by attracting industry-leading talent and businesses, and by significantly upgrading the city's digital infrastructure to transform government service. At the same time, he has led important conversations about economic opportunity, pay equity, and about addressing persistent issues of racism in Boston. We are thankful for his leadership and that he took the time to listen and reflect with us today. and I know he will do it in sincerity and take your ideas and implement them, because he's done it time and again in these listening sessions. So thank you for being here, Mayor Walsh. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin to facilitate the conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel like everyone can hear me okay. Is that fine? All right, thank you. Oh, sorry. Okay, you're right. Thank you, Mayor. So my name is Justin King. I'm lucky enough to be the Executive Director of CityWake, which is a program of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to the partners and our many sponsors for making this work. Jim did a great job of thanking our team, but I also want to give a special shout out for Jim. I don't think there is any business group across the country that is unapologetic and passionate in making sure that Boston is a welcoming place for young professionals of color. So we can give a round of applause. Today is our second day of our Fierce Urgency of Now Festival, and we are very proud, very grateful. I also have to give a shout out to my work best friend, Sheena Collier, right there, hey best friend. And also Hannah Zinn, who is a force of nature. She just joined our team a few months ago, so we give her another round of applause. Why we are here today is that we believe that these 5 days is meant to be a platform. We don't expect the world to change in these 5 days, but we hope that it starts a conversation in making sure that these 5 days of inclusivity, of empowerment, last 365 days. So So every year we'll do this festival, every year we'll have these 5 days, but we want to make sure that this great city is a great city for everyone. So what we asked, we did a call to action. We found 11 amazing young professionals who are going to share their aspirations of what Boston could be. And we're very thankful for the mayor to be joining us and making sure that we have some conversations with that. So what's going to happen is that each speaker will have 90 seconds to share their vision of Boston. I apologize in advance because I will be rude if you go exceed that. So that could be a whole Twitter fight later, but I'm going to be 90 seconds, that's it. Because what will happen thereafter is then we're going to have the mayor share his thoughts and start a conversation about some of those proposals and have a back and forth. Before we begin, I wanted just to offer the mayor the opportunity before we become active listeners to share any starting thoughts before we have our first presenter.
How much time do I have?
You have 1 hour.
A couple minutes. First of all, thank you, Danny, for the introduction. I want to thank Justin for leading the conversation today. I want to thank Jim and the Chamber, and I want to thank the Chamber for having this conversation. This is not the first time this conversation's had, and it's a necessary conversation, and I think that it's important for the millennials in the room. If you're not connected to the Chamber, even though you're here today, get connected to the Chamber. If your companies that you work for aren't connected to the Chamber, advocate that you be liaison to the Chamber. I think that that's key. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank John Barros and his team from Economic Development. John's the Chief Economic Development for the City of Boston. Just real quick, I'm not going to go too much into anything because the conversation is important that we're going to have here today. Just a snapshot of Boston. I was sworn in as mayor in 2014. From that time till today, 52,000 people living in the city of Boston that weren't here. 120,000 jobs created in the city of Boston itself that weren't here. Took on a housing crisis that's still in existence today. We lead the country in low-income production of low-income housing in the country. We lead the country in the numbers of it, not percentage, in the numbers of it. But still, you can see the need. Many of you, I see heads nodding. You're living in an apartment with 2 and 3 and 4 people. Or you can't live in Boston. You want to live in Boston. You grew up in Boston. You want to stay in Boston. So we have more work to do there when you think about it. Our population, 34.6% of our population living in the city of Boston are kids, young people between the ages of 20 and 34, millennials. So when you think about the population growth, and for me personally as mayor, I want those, all of you that are 20 to 34 years old, I want you to stay in the city of Boston. I want you to raise your families in the city of Boston. I want you to make your investments in the city of Boston. I want you to live in the city of Boston. So we have work to do when it comes to making sure that we create opportunities. We don't want you here to get a job and party and have a good time when you're young in Boston. All of a sudden when you settle down and say, well, I think I'm going to move to Newton. I want you to stay here in the city of Boston. Nothing wrong with Newton, but I'm just saying. I really want you to do that. I think that's important. The issues that we are focused on, people ask me this all the time, what's the most important issue? Depends on who you talk to. But the issues that are at the top of the list for us in the city of Boston are transportation, our housing, our economic development, environment. It's important, all those different issues, and they cross-sector, they all cross over each other in education. So we need to make sure we can continue. We'll talk more about that dialogue in a minute. We're also a very open city. 28% of the people that live in Boston were born in another country. 50% of the people roughly that live in the city of Boston are first generation like I am. So and 50% of the people live in our city are people of color. 52% of the people, the families in our city, our households are led by women. So when we think about equity, we think about equity across all lines. We think about equity when it comes to equal pay. It's not just a conversation, it makes an impact for the city of Boston that 52% of the households are led by women. If women are being paid 72 cents on the dollar to a man, or 65 cents or 57 cents, that's respectively black and Latino women, there's a problem in our economy somewhere down the road. So we're working to make sure that we're inclusive. Immigrants, we're an immigrant city, we're built by immigrants. We need to make sure that immigrants feel welcome in our city, and that we're going to continue to welcome and invite immigrants into our city. Something that's really important for our city. All of them in here, all of this begins with how do we lay down the foundation in City Hall. If women in my administration aren't being paid the same as men for doing the same job, then I can't go out and talk about pay equity. If we're not creating opportunities, if my workforce is not diverse, my cabinet is not diverse, the department head's not diverse, the workforce is not diverse, I can't go out and expect from companies to get more diverse. Just can't do that. If I don't respect all of the other things I talked about today, we don't set the tone in the city, I have no right, no ability to go out and tell other companies and other people that this is what I expect out of you in the city of Boston. So it's so important. Lastly, and this is truly lastly, I want to thank all of you. As you're sitting here today, you're all potentially future leaders. I was talking to, last night I was at my house and a couple friends came over, we were just talking on the porch about life and where life takes you, and we were talking about how do some people lead and how come some people work harder than other people. We went back and forth. And I always thought when I was a young person, I wanted to be involved, I wanted to be a leader. Not necessarily in politics, in something. And I think it takes drive and desire, and you're here today. And don't let anyone tell you you can't be a leader. Because every single person in this room can be a leader in one way or another. Whether you're leading your company, whether you're leading your community, whether you're leading in different ways. That's what we need. We need voices to rise up, and voices to talk about in some confidence. And I know that I believe in all of you in this room, and I don't know a lot of you. But this room, if you look around this room, this is who we are in Boston. This is what Boston looks like every single day. It doesn't look like this every single day in every single neighborhood. And we have work to do there. But this is who Boston truly is in this room today. So I want to thank you for being here.
Great start, thank you, Mayor. We're going to begin again, as a reminder, 90 seconds. Please hold applauses. I will be giving sort of 10-second reminders just to let the speaker know to wrap up shortly. To start off, please welcome Anita Yip.
And as the ideas are being brought out here, somebody is taking notes, so ideas that we hear today that we want to follow up on, so we're not forgetting what you're doing, so we will do some follow-up.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay. Great, so my name is Anita Yip, and I'm with Untapped Potential Boston, and I'm here to talk about driving inclusive economic growth by increasing access to opportunities for job seekers without bachelor's degrees who make up the majority of Boston. One obstacle this population faces is degree inflation. As such, I'd love to see the City of Boston issue a workforce challenge for employers to find innovative ways to assess and hire people based on their skills and experience over degrees. And this could mean putting on a hackathon where attendees might be hired based on their performance or fit. And one metric of success would be to see an increase in the number of non-baccalaureate workers hired into jobs with salaries that provide a quality standard of living. At the same time, I'd also love to see professional development events offered by libraries and career centers that give residents proactive ways of showcasing their skills and experiences. So this could be a workshop, for example, on strategic volunteering or how to start a freelancing business. And lastly, I'd like to encourage more apprenticeship programs that mix school and on-the-job training experience, along with partnerships among community organizations, community colleges, the city, and employers that could better prepare the workforce of the future and meet the needs of growing industries in Boston. Thank you.
We're going to have everyone pitch first and then come back at the end, if that's okay. Mayor?
I'll try, yeah.
Okay.
If I forget something, just tell me, because
Okay. We'll prompt you. Thank you, Mayor. Cool, that worked out well. All right, next up. Next up is Maya Gall.
Hello. Hi, how you doing? My name is Maya Gall. I'm a worker owner at Seto Cooperative. I'm here to talk about the issues of economic inequality among people of color in under-resourced neighborhoods, climate change and pollution, and the decrease of available space in landfills. So the solution I will propose is an already functioning example of Boston's Green New Deal, Seto Cooperative. Seto offers jobs for justice, worker-owned jobs paying living wages in the green economy, environmental justice. Currently, we're hauling over 12 million pounds of wasting food away from landfills and to local farms. And also, a solution to building community wealth, thinking about situating community-scale anaerobic digestion, a machine that can transform food waste into renewable natural gas, electricity, and a liquid organic fertilizer that can be used for indoor and outdoor growing. However, we need the city's help to go farther as a national example. We are currently exporting this vital resource outside of the city limits, and we need to have it remain within our neighborhoods in order to create a local green and renewable energy economy. So I want to ask, what can the city do to support Seto's proposal on the Boston City's 5-acre composting land in Mattapan? Thank you.
Up next is Mariel Novas, doctor.
Hi. Good to see you. Hi, everyone. I'm Mariel Novas. I'm really grateful to be here. My family and I moved to Jamaica Plain from the Dominican Republic when I was 5 years old, and I've been lucky enough to call Boston home ever since. I'm a doctoral candidate in education leadership at Harvard, and I'm also supporting the work of the Massachusetts Education Equity Partnership currently. When John Winthrop spoke of Boston as a city upon a hill centuries ago, he imagined a city that would serve as an example to the world. My vision is not so different from his. I envision a new city on a hill for this generation of new Bostonians. As a former immigrant myself, or a current immigrant still here, and a former middle school teacher to new immigrants in the Boston Public Schools, I'm acutely aware of the difficulties that immigrants face in navigating housing, healthcare, employment, and school. Boston's immigrants have fed the soul of our city since its inception, and there's a huge role that the city can play in facilitating and supporting immigrant integration. I propose that we expand the reach and capacity of the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Advancement in order for it to be able to coordinate these services. People need to work and people need to go to school. Let's provide pathways to licensing for professionals who are immigrants who are currently unable to practice their profession here. And let's open pathways to higher education for all of our students, whether they be immigrants or not. Boston's immigrants, given the current national climate surrounding immigration, need all of us and need you, Mayor Walsh, to lead on this issue. Thank you all so much for this opportunity.
Next up, we have Felicia Jasbeck.
All right, can everyone hear me? Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Felicia Jadzak. I am the co-CEO and co-founder of a 4-year-old women-owned startup based right here in downtown Boston called She Geeks Out. We offer diversity, equity, and inclusion training for companies. We also have a vibrant community of Women Plus and their allies, where we connect these people with each other, as well as with companies who wish to hire them. That leads me to the problem I'd like to address, which is we're seeing that women are getting access to great internships, great entry-level jobs at companies here, especially within the booming tech industry here in Boston. However, that's where we stall. Women are not getting promoted, they're not getting advanced, and they're not getting opportunities to have access to these high-level, high-income job opportunities. And this problem is especially keen for women of color and those from underrepresented groups. So the solution that I'd like to present is a best-of-class seal of inclusion. We have some great programs here already, like the 100% Talent Compact, which address pay and pay equity. This goes one step further to address inclusion. This seal will be awarded to companies only after undergoing a rigorous review, and they'll have to commit to supporting activities like partnerships with organizations like the ones in this room today, training, inclusive workspace and inclusive benefit assessments and reviews, ongoing promotion reviews, and putting aside real dollars for budgets, resources, and people. Thank you very much. I look forward to speaking with you further about this, and thank you all for the time today.
We're halfway there, and thank you to all the presenters for staying on time. Thank you. And also the great ideas. So,
As an aside.
I have one role right now. So, next up we have Aisha Francis.
Hi, I'm Aisha Francis from Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology, which is a technical college in Boston. Hello, Mr. Mayor. I'm here to present a program that I've called Boost, which is an initiative to increase the availability of paid internships for local Boston residents for a more competitive Boston. The majority of paid college internships at large companies in Boston are nationally competitive, and most of them go to students who are not from Boston and don't have intentions of staying here. They have little intention to return after they complete college at the schools that are not here locally. Therefore, college students from low-income communities in Boston who've beaten the odds to pursue higher education are boxed out of consideration for paid internships, as well as the social capital and job offers that come along with them. They're often held back not because of a lack of knowledge about the importance of internships, but because of barriers that are placed on the process of acquiring an internship, such as considering four-year college students only, filtering for applicants who've had prior paid work experience or significant unpaid work experience, and other things. But the city can intervene. And I propose that the city extend the good work of the Summer Jobs Program by dramatically increasing the number of paid early work opportunities that are available and offered to those same local youth once they attend college. For flagship corporate leaders participating in a program like Boost, which awards and rewards them for making opportunities available to two-year college students by reserving slots expressly for them, removing the requirement for previous work experience in the interview and application process for paid internships, and then publicizing the number of and percentage of Boston residents chosen for paid internships would go a long way to removing this barrier. Thank you.
Take a moment, pause, just so in case that we can make sure that everything's present in mind, and give the mayor a few minutes to respond.
Thank you, yeah, and we'll get to the other fact. First of all, I don't know, like, could you give me some hard questions? Like these softballs we're getting. First of all, thank you all for asking questions. I think on the first one, the job training program and the bachelor's degree, and how do we create more opportunities, I think that's key. One of the things that we started to talk about last year in the city, or actually before last year, is putting our young people on a pathway to college or career. And we have to make sure that our high schools are preparing our kids for the economy of today. And I think that is so important. That, I mean, I'm a perfect example. I was not really college quality. I went to college for a year and a half after high school, and I dropped out, and I ended up going back to get my degree. But we have to do a lot better job of preparing our kids for a career. Being prepared for college, well, but career. There was a story in the Boston Globe, a valedictorian story in the Globe a few months ago, and they were talking about how where are they now, and a lot of our valedictorians, some were homeless. None of them really hit the opportunities that they were expecting when they were in high school. And that can be a little bit of the individual not driving themselves, but it's also part of, are we preparing our kids to really be prepared? And I think the best way of handling that situation is number one, preparing our kids for jobs that are available today when they graduate high school, and secondly, try to work with employers on giving kids opportunities and chances, a lot of kids for good paying jobs. We also have a program that we do in our own city called Boston Hires, which we're going out to get 22,000 people by 2024, I think it is. We want to get people that are low-income workers today into better paying jobs So it is gonna truly take the whole community to drive that out. So that's one suggestion I'd say back, but I'd love to follow up after. We have some folks here that would love to talk to you afterwards. The second piece is, Maya talked about the environment and more opportunities. First and foremost, if you haven't connected to Chris Cook, and Chief of Environment for the City of Boston, you need to. He knows all about the composting facility we have in Mattapan, and also contact with Mike Broll from our Public Works Department to think about how do we dispose of food. I mean, certainly we're doing some pilot programs right now of composting in the city. We haven't gone to a full composting pickup yet in the City of Boston. I see it coming in the future. We're just not there yet because the cost of it and how do we do it. But there's opportunity. So I would suggest your company reaches out to Chris and talk about that. Some of the problems that we're having, you know, a lot of cities and towns are getting rid of recycling right now because of the increased costs and not being able to dispose of it. We actually put, I think, $6 or $8 million additionally into the budget to do recycling, keep recycling going in the City of Boston. I'm not going to take us backwards. We're going to continue to move forwards, even if it costs a few dollars. So I think on the idea, and I think there has to be an educational component to what composting is and what we can use compost for in the city. And I think that's so important. So I would suggest that Chris Cook from Environment, and also have him bring in Mike Broll to talk a little bit about that in your company and some other ideas, not just your company, but if we truly get this right, there's an opportunity for entrepreneurship with other companies coming out and being active and engaged. So thank you for that. The question around immigration and state law and licensing. I was a state rep prior to being a mayor, and there was more than one occasion where somebody came into my office and came from different countries, and they might have been trained in architecture or doctors or lawyers and things like that, and the state law does not recognize their license, and there's no quick take a test. If you took a credentialed course in your country and you want to come to America and take a test, the bar or what have you, to prove that you can do the work and that you understand it, we don't allow that. It's against state law here right now in Massachusetts. So first and foremost, we have to go to the state to make some changes there into that law on how do we make it. For example, if you're a plumber, okay, you're dealing with technical stuff, pipes and on all kinds of different equipment. But if you're a plumber in, you know, Russia and you're all of a sudden move to America and you want to be a plumber, you have to go back to school and do it all over again. So there's some issues there. So that's first and foremost, I think, something that we should be talking about, and how do we create that opportunity. That's something that's key. On the education side of it, kids that are foreign born, that are undocumented, that go to school in Boston, per the Constitution, we educate them. And then in 12th grade, a lot of those kids can go to college, but they have to pay out of their pocket, and they don't get in-state tuition rate. Well, they do now in Massachusetts, but they don't get benefit. They don't get scholarships and grants and all the Pell Grants and all that stuff. But when we created the free community college program, we included those kids into that. So there is opportunities to help educate people as well along the way. And our Office of Immigrant Advancement, my advice to anyone in this room that is interested in immigration issues, my advice is reach out to our Office of Immigrant Advancement. We have a new director, Yusufi Valley. When I became a mayor, the office was called the Office of New Bostonians, and we realized that it's so much more than new Bostonians, people coming, immigrants to the country. We talked about the immigrant advancement. How do we help advance immigrants? And part of that is integrating immigrants through the city process that we have. Not just simply going to immigrant advancement, but connecting them to small business economic development, connecting people to water and sewer, connecting people to education, connecting people to women's advancement, connecting people to all the different pieces that we have. So all of that stuff, we're open to take that office. It's kind of it's a whiteboard, if you will, and ready to just go out with it, whatever you want. So that's something that I appreciate you bringing that up. Women's issues. I talked a little bit about in my opening about salary negotiation, about I didn't talk about women's advancement, but I talked about setting the tone early for the city to be doing that. But in our women's advancement office, again, when I took over as mayor, it was called the Women's Commission, and it was an office that was doing good work for women. But we thought to ourselves, it's really about advancing women. It's about advancing opportunity, and not just about talking about childcare, but how do we really deal with issues of being inclusive. How do we deal with finding out the 100% talent compact? I think we have 275 roughly employers right now that give us their data to tell us where they are. The first report was just basically pretty much across the board looking at what women paid. The second report, I think we're looking more into the demographic breakdowns to really get a real understanding of what the numbers look like in the city of Boston. We also created something called the Salary Negotiation Workshop. That's something that we're educating and helping women to be able to negotiate a salary. A typical transaction is a guy gets offered a job, a guy gets told what the salary is, a guy will say, well, I'd like to get more money and a different title, and more often than not, because the guy was able to understand how to do that, not how to do that, but have the confidence to do that, then they take the job, and they get more money and they get a different title. We've seen in the past where women will go and get a job and say, thank you very much for the job, and leave, and understand that something's been left on the table. So we've been able to work with, I think to this date, 7,000 or 8,000 women to help train women on, when I say we, coaches, on how to negotiate for higher salary. It's happened in my office, where I've had somebody, we've given them a promotion, and she came back to me and said, well, I'd like a different title and more money. And I was laughing because I'm thinking, like, it's exactly the salary negotiation workshop. And what do? You have the conversation, and obviously it's successful. So those are kind of the things too about the pay equity stuff that you talked about. Some of the responsibility is on you to learn a little bit more, take advantage of this program. It's a free program, and it really is amazing, and you're going to make connections as well, something that's going to be important. So there's a whole bunch in that part, and with the question was asked, but I think those are some of the beginning things that we've been able to do. And when I answer the question, doesn't mean that that's the final answer. That means that we're going to take what we heard today and look at it and see how do we expand without having to be prompted to expand. And I think that that's something that's important. The last one, the paid internships, great point. You know, I think that a couple things, I think the way I respond to that one. Number one is I think it's important that myself as the mayor, and maybe reach out to Jimmy Rooney as the head of the chamber, to encourage businesses in Boston to give some slots for Boston-only people that are in college to expand their opportunity. And also, how do we recruit some of these tech companies that aren't necessarily at the chamber every month that are hiring interns as well? How do we make sure we bring them in? So I think that that's a process that we work with the chamber on trying to do that. I think that's key. I think the summer job program, I would love to expand the summer job program is bigger than it is. I think we're about roughly 11,000 jobs now. You know, in this beginning of this, before the summer starts, my cabinet literally sits in a room. We get a list of companies that are not participating in our summer job program, and we call them, all of us, the cabinet members, I call them, and ask them to increase their numbers if they're low, or to open up the doors. A great example of that is Vertec Pharmaceutical. If Jeff Layden was here, he would tell us that prior to 2014, they had an internship program for college kids. And they didn't have an internship for high school kids, and I called them up. We did this little roundtable thing, and we called them up, and I think he took on 20 kids the first year. I think he's up to 75 kids this year, high school kids, that he's employing through Vertec Pharmaceutical. A lot of the companies, if they're smart, they will identify the kids that are coming to the summer program for the last couple of years, and they will start to grab them to keep them, because what you've done is you've laid down a foundation for people that know the culture of your company, and you know what they can do and what they can't do. So those are some of the things I think we should do. If you're a company in this office, or you represent, I would ask you to go back and ask your company, if you hire summer intern program. If you didn't, go back and say that mayor would like you to do it. You can reach out to our office. Midori's here from our office. Let her know. We will do it. We'll call them. We'll follow up. But that's a couple of things I think real quickly that I can respond to.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Next up, we have John and Kristen from Allen Garrison.
Hi, thank you for having us. John and Kristen, we're from Allen & Garrison, a ad agency in Boston, right in Seaport. And we are here to talk about some research that we've been doing with our clients, Pine Street Inn, and the work that they've done for housing the homeless. And we realized that there was a really interesting pattern that we saw. And that is that if you don't have an address, you can't get a job. And if you don't have a job, you can't get an address. And so we've discovered.
Introducing Drop the Address. So what do we mean by that? So basically, you know, in today's increasingly digital world, in order to apply for a job, you must do so online. That especially accounts for the top 40 employers in America. So think like Target, Starbucks, etc. You have to apply digitally. And what happens if you apply digitally is next to the fields like address and phone number, they are mandatory asterisks, meaning you have to fill that out. And what happens if you don't have anything to put in that field? Then you don't get the opportunity to move forward in the job application process or even show any of your skills that you may have.
So we're inviting you to be the first mayor to drop the required field, drop the address, and make sure that people, homeless people, immigrants, the military, and any Boston resident that doesn't currently have a permanent address have the ability to apply for a job.
And is it legal to remove the address field? A lot of people have asked us that, and it completely is. We've been working with a lawyer in DC who's actually published a 100-page dissertation.
Which we printed for you.
Which we printed for you. in the Yale Law Journal about that exact topic. And we're also inviting you to challenge other Massachusetts-based CEOs to do the same thing. And we really think this will position Boston as a thought leader in the category and help open access to an untapped workforce.
In fact, we've already written a headline for you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Elisa Nova.
So my name is Elisa Nova, and like Mariette, we actually went to elementary school together, and we're still in Boston. I immigrated here from the Dominican Republic when I was also 6 years old at the time. David Elwood, former dean of the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, said, "Everybody ought to have a chance to grow up in an opportunity neighborhood. Boston is a great city. We attract people from all over the country and the world. This magnetism towards our culture and economy is phenomenal, but it is also gentrifying our inner cities. With the added resources that gentrification brings, it is displacing our poor. The affordable units, the Section 8, the public housing, are all great and designed to help people out of poverty by lending a hand. In this, we also see the cycle of generational poverty or systemic poverty. There is a big disparity between children raised in poverty and children with resources and access. Ask MECO. Our busing system. Gentrification transforms our communities in positive ways. It also further perpetuates the cycle of poverty, highlighting both the lack of economic resources and social capital. How do we combat systemic poverty in Boston and ensure a better future for our children? My Skilled Life, a class added to the BPS curriculum designed to increase the intellectual capital of our kids. This class will begin in the first grade and follow the student throughout their BPS career. I should know I was a BPS student throughout my entire career. Broken down in 3 parts with the topics being taught in trimester style: financial literacy, health, and cultural, which encompasses music, art, politics, and the global economy. Catered to age and grade level, this will aid in the creation of a future where our low-income students, who then become contributing adults, have better control of their lives, become better advocates for themselves, and place a greater value in their own communities. Thank you.
Next up, we have Corey Justina.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. My name is Corey DePina. I'm a teaching artist, manager, and founding member of an amazing nonprofit here in East Boston called Zoomix. Over the last 20 years, I have lived and seen the impact that art plays in all communities. My vision is for you to continue to support and increase arts education and funding through great community-supported efforts like EdVestors and the new Shop Syndicate. Our city's cultural plan was a great step, but somehow we left out teenagers and young artists. With new money coming into the city and gentrification being a hot topic, equitable access to arts education in schools, museums, community centers, and nonprofits help to support the growth of our future culture makers. I see you working closely with the new superintendent to support the arts campaign to ensure all high school students receive arts instructions to meet the Massachusetts core recommended before graduating, to ensure that every BPS high school has at least one full-time arts teacher, to ensure BPS high schools adequately fund arts materials, supplies, and arts-related transportation in accordance to the recommendations outlined in the BPS education policy, revised and adapted in May of 2018, and to ensure that we create a concrete plan for BPS to reach the stated goals for high school arts, by 2020 and 2021. Thank you. And let's find some time to meet.
Tamika Francis.
I only have 60 seconds before my baby starts crying, so you don't have to tell me. So quickly, how many folks know where to get a good penne or pasta here in Boston? Yeah, a good patty? Less. How about good ravioli? Good roti? We're seeing some differences here. So I'll get to the differences. Mr. Mayor, you don't even know what a roti is, right? You're like, what's that? No worries. So it costs on average about $500,000 to start a restaurant here in Boston, more in a prime location like downtown. Most businesses tend to be established, owned by white chefs, and usually with folks who have lots of resources and access to capital. Most Boston restaurants have abundance of steakhouses, seafood, pasta, and pizza, and there's nothing wrong with those options. But there's other food, ethnic food, immigrant food, food in overabundance in low-income neighborhoods that tend to be of low quality, tend to be undervalued, misunderstood, or underrepresented, with low customer service or almost never have a liquor license. There is a plethora of other foods from around the world, and Bostonians want to have that too. I am Tamika Francis, the founder of Food and Folklore. We currently pay homage to global food cuisines through dinners and culinary classes. My big vision for Boston is to open a diaspora test kitchen, a space where young chefs of color can test their concept through a rotating chef agreement where they're able to incubate their ideas before launching in a big space, offering patrons and supporters a space to offer more food, a more diverse food scene here in Boston, and a more welcoming food environment for Bostonians. Thank you.
Please welcome Mario Rivera.
Good afternoon. I represent Alpha, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. We have over 90,000 members across the country, over 6,000 here in Boston, and we have over 30 corporate sponsors just here in the Boston chapter. My name is Mario Rivera. I'm the incoming president of the Alpha Boston chapter. I work in financial services, so my reality is that when I go to work at 200 Clarendon, most people checking in that day don't look like this, as diverse. So my vision for Boston is that for corporate America in Boston to look a lot more like this room. At Alpha, we work in business, in technology, in healthcare, some of the most important industries that also pay great wages for people of color. So my vision is for those industries to become a lot more diverse. It's going to take a lot to get there, but one of the things that could really help is get greater representation at the top of those companies. So my ask here today, Mayor Walsh, is to offer a pledge to Boston-based companies to sign up for the Rooney Rule. No affiliation, but what that means is that they agree to interview at least one person of color for their most senior level positions. Have greater representation, advocacy at the top, and I think it'll open a lot of doors for us. Thank you.
Last up, we have Ian So.
It's gonna take me 10 seconds to button this up, so I gotta be fast. My name's Ian. I'm the board member for the National Asian Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship. My day job is I founded and run this Chicken and Rice Guys. We have 9 food trucks and restaurants. And Mayor, I'm glad you told everyone they can be a leader, because anyone that has an Asian mom won't be surprised. But she told me the first 4 years of doing my business, when you get a real job. And it took her about 6 years to tell her she's proud of me. It's a funny story, but it's definitely a common theme amongst Asian entrepreneurs. A lot of things that make Americans successful, like taking risks, self-confidence, self-expression, are things that are not taught in Asian culture and actually are looked down upon. And this is borne out in a lot of the statistics with Asian entrepreneurship. You see a lot of the Asian small businesses have the lowest average number of employees and the lowest amount of revenue. And you can see them struggle to scale. You see a lot of mom and pops like laundromats, restaurants. And it draws back to some of those cultural background. You also see a lot of them, so the Asian ethnicity group as a whole receives the least amount of funding from nonprofits, corporations, and governments of any kind of organization. And that's especially problematic because I think a lot of people see us Asians as doing well in America, but there are a lot of challenges we have, particularly the Cambodian, the Hmong, the Vietnamese populations. They're one of the poorest ethnic groups in America. Was that 10 seconds?
10 more seconds.
Okay, yeah, so so what we do is we do a lot of advocacy work with DC. We have a policy document representing the business interests of Asian Americans, and then we do a lot of programming specifically targeted to the challenges Asian Americans have. And actually, you know, Mayor Walsh, you do a great job with what you do for the Asian community, so thank you a lot. Love what you do with Spark Boston. Just make sure you, you know, include business leaders like me, and yeah, thank you.
So we got maybe 15 or so minutes, and I'll definitely turn over to the mayor in a second, but can we give all our speakers all really thoughtful ideas, and I would also encourage, we here at the Chamber, a lot of them took a lens of business. I know we have spoken many a time, so let's definitely see where we can be a supportive partner in some of your dreams and ambitions. I'll sort of tee up some things for you, Mayor, instead of just going rapid fire. A couple of the suggestions with the drop the address around the Rooney Rule has talking about sort of diversifying the workforce. One, if you want to comment specifically on those particular niches around dropping the address so that it could be more equitable in the hiring process, and with the Rooney Rule. What are your thoughts of how corporate America can diversify its workforce?
Just to start with drop the address, I think that we do a lot of work now, collaborative work with the Pine Tree Inn and all the homeless facilities in the city of Boston. And I love the idea of how do we not just drop the address, but how do we create opportunities for job training for some people. Some people have been out of work for a while, so I'd love to talk to you more about that. I know in the city of Boston, I'm assuming we've hired people who have been homeless to do some work on public works and places. I think they use the shelter address for it, but I'd love to talk to you more about that, because I think that's a really important piece of it. Some folks that are homeless are just down on their luck, and to help them rebuild their life is by putting confidence back in their life, and that confidence is a job. If there's something, responsibility to show up to. So I'd love to follow back up with you a little more on that. Let me jump around here for a minute. On the Latino network and the Asian community, I think it's really important to understand that there's a lot of different organizations now. When I say organizations, then the groups that are starting to go out and create organizations. We have the Cape Verdean police officers in Boston. We have Latino groups. We have a lot of different ethnic groups that are creating opportunities, whether it's employment or public safety or what have you. I love the idea of challenging the business community for the Rooney Rule. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think that it's something that we should be looking at. I wish I thought about it, not you. And I'm dead serious about it. And I think, honestly, some businesses have been more a lot of businesses now in Boston are looking to diversify their boards. That didn't happen before. And, you know, they're looking for people to be involved. And I also think that we have to go out, you have to go. My challenge back to both of you and other people in the room is let people know who's out there. When I became the mayor, we were putting people on boards, and it was always the same name. And no disrespect, but it was always people like the same. It was the same two guys. They were on every board in the whole country. And it's kind of like, okay, we need to diversify, because we have young people in the city that might not be as popular, as famous, or whatever as these two people are, but they can bring the same, if not more, value to a board. So I think we have to talk about networking and how do we get some people out there, because it's not just at the head of the company. If you don't start to integrate the board and diversify the board, you're not going to get to the top. And it's like anything, so you have to start thinking about that. So I appreciate both of you for that. I'd love to follow more on that stuff. Economic, good.
Well, I was going to prompt you, sort of transitioning. There was a couple comments around education, with Delisa and Corey around arts education and sort of skills building and from an early age. With a new superintendent, do you want to walk through sort of your vision?
First of all, I don't remember I know Boston Creates, but I wasn't aware that we did not target teenagers in that report, because that report was really driven by the arts community. So that was obviously a problem. The beauty about the Boston Creates is that it's a living, breathing document, so it can be amended and changed. So I think we should. When it comes to funding for arts, Boston is reinvesting. We're building a brand new Boston Arts Academy. arts high school, we're the premier arts high school in the country, so I think that's a strong sign. I think when it comes to funding and grant programs that we have through our own arts and culture cabinet, the money is not limited to adults. The money is limited to any organization, anybody who applies for it, and we give out these mini grants, and I think we're doing some next week, the 12th, and doing another round. So that money is accessible to the local artist, if you will. The local artist could be a teenager, the local artist could be a 75-year-old person, and I think that's key. When it comes to schools, I mean, the priority is that we want to get arts in every school, and it's kind of thinking about how some schools do it on their own, and we don't have a formal program, as you know, per se, in all of our schools across the board, and it's something that we have to work with the superintendent and the school committee on as we move forward. We have some big challenges. I'm not making excuses. We have big challenges. Our sports programs are probably underfunded. This year, it took us, from the existence of schools, we have a school nurse in every school now in Boston. This is the first time in the history of our school. We have to do more counseling, more guidance counselors. So there's a lot of needs there, and I think it really is about how do we come up with a program that works. Do we partner with places like Zoomix, who's amazing, to do, maybe partner with East Boston schools? Can we partner with other, George Gerard, to partner with other organizations in other places around the city? So something that we should be driving for.
And then just sort of a final question just around sort of tying into, do you support an experimental kitchen?
Brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea.
Right. All right, that was easy.
That's a brilliant idea.
We're over here.
We have Commonwealth Kitchen in our city. We have a program in Carbon Square in our city. We have a program down by Melnina and Mass in our city. And I think maybe one or two of those programs could need a little boost to help. And I think partnering with something like that would be key. I think that's so key. We are setting up, and we have set up within this, with economic development, opportunities to help people create restaurants. We have liquor licenses that we want to give to businesses of color. We have that stuff. The problem is that it's how do we make sure that businesses can to give the business support they need to be supportive. You should talk to Natalia right here before you leave. But I love that idea because I think it's so true. Although I would disagree with one thing. We have some unbelievable ethnic restaurants in the city of Boston that might not look it from the outside because we're trying to help them with the storefronts. They might not have the fancy, Capitol Grill storefront, but the food, the quality of food inside is as good as any restaurant you have in the city. So I think it's how do we promote those restaurants, and God bless you, and how do we also get some of our, listen, I grew up in an Irish household, my mother. In the last 10 years I've tried more food than any other time in my life. I've eaten meat and potatoes every night, and vegetables every night, so it is about getting people that experience new food. I think younger people, millennials in particular, you try all kinds of food. When I was a millennial, it wasn't such a thing at the time, but when I was 20 years old, I wasn't thinking about having a sushi or something else, That's the way it was. I think there was one other question. I missed one.
Do you want to comment specifically on Delisa's proposal?
Yeah, let me just pull it up here for a minute. Yeah, just on gentrification and combating poverty, it's not a simple answer. It's going to take a lot of pieces to that. When you think about it's systemic poverty, if you will, generational poverty, as you put it, that's something that we in the city, my office and John's office and everyone else's office, including I think Jim Rooney's office, we have to make some real advancements on that. And I think it goes back to education, creating opportunities and making sure people have a good solid foundation. What's happened if the systemic poverty, I think is when you ask the family member, whether it's the child or the parent or the grandparent, maybe the great-grandparent, most of them stopped school at a certain age and stopped opportunity. Some of it's racism, quite honestly, and it's lack of opportunity. Some of it is a whole bunch of reasons, and I think we have to start, figuring out, and it goes back to one of the first questions that was asked me earlier about education. The first woman that asked the question about, is there opportunities for people that don't go to college? Back when immigrants came to this country back in the day, many immigrants that are here, they work 2 and 3 jobs and they raise a family with it. They don't have a college degree, they don't have a high school diploma. And I think we really have to think about education as one way of creating that opportunity, and then working with businesses the second way. We really have to do more. And there is a place in society for businesses to do that. Listen, I love the businesses of Boston. I think they're great, and they do great things, and when I call them for something, they give it to us. But I think they also have a responsibility to really take a deeper look inside their own company and say, how do we really create opportunities for folks to be able to, so they can earn a living to raise a family? You know, the difference between making $25,000 a year and $80,000 a year for a family is a big difference. Even $60,000 a year, it's a big difference. And I think having these companies understand that, that's so important. You know, you can pay the people at the top all you want. I'm not one of these people that say, oh, I can't believe how much they get paid. I want you to share that wealth throughout the company, and I want you to share that wealth with people that might not have had the opportunity.
Thank you. Mayor, any final parting thoughts?
No, I just thank you. I mean, is there anyone else in the room, if you have ideas, please contact us in City Hall. Let us know. You might think it's an idea that's off the wall. It doesn't matter. Just contact us. If everyone in the room that works for the city, if you could just raise your hand, just so we know, we have a bunch of people here. Grab somebody that's here. Anything you have for an idea, just let us know. You don't know what idea you might have that could turn into a brilliant idea or a brilliant policy or something that we're going to do. And the same for, if you have ideas for Jimmy, I know Jimmy Rooney's staff's here, but grab one of my guys as well for that. And you know, whatever idea, we kick everything around. It's so important. I meant what I said. I'm going to end with this. You are the future of the city. You are the future of the city of Boston. And the issues that we're battling today, whether it's racism, or inequality, or poverty, or gentrification, lack of housing, lack of employment, all those issues, 100 years ago somebody could have sat in this seat and talked about the same issues. 25 years later, the same person could have sat in the seat and talked about the same issues. 50 years later, it's the same issue. 75 years later, it's the same issue. And 100 years later, it's some of the same issues with different definitions. And if we don't honestly continue to do the work we're doing, in the next 100 years, somebody's going to sit at this seat, and they're going to be talking about gentrification, and they're going to be talking about lack of opportunity, and systemic poverty, and all the issues that we're talking about today. We have to draw the line at some point, and you are the generation that can start to do that. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. It's my pleasure to reintroduce our CEO, Jim Rooney.
First, wow, to all of the people that came up and presented the great ideas. I know there were others, and I think we're going to try to develop a mechanism for those ideas to be shared as well, but really tremendous. As I was listening, I was reflecting on the way the mayor opened the conversation by talking about leadership and wanting to be a leader. And I think that there's been several demonstrations of leadership today and what it means. I mean, it's one thing to want to be a leader and want to stand at the front of the room, but being willing to sit up here and listen and have a dialogue like this. I have seen over the past 5+ years, I guess, so many rooms that Mayor Walsh has walked into to have tough conversations, and you have to be willing to do that. So thank you, Mayor, for doing that. Second mark of leadership is often saying what might be uncomfortable things to people. So we invite the mayor to speak to the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce each year. He'll be doing it in a month or so. There'll be about 800 people in the room, and I can tell you, the last 3 years, he stood up there with a microphone and challenged the business community on issues of diversity and inclusion, on their role in climate readiness, and on their partnership with the Boston Public Schools and the degree to which we are not supporting enough in the Boston Public Schools. So using that position of leadership to call people out and to challenge people to step up in ways is another dimension of leadership. And finally, recognizing that you can't do it all on your own. The mayor's willingness to sort of call for ideas from this audience, but also to partner with the business communities. I was listening to some of the suggestions. They were probably questions more aimed at me than they were the mayor of Boston in terms of the role of the business community on some of the issues that we're talking about today. But we both recognize, and we've been friends for a long time, none of us are going to do this alone, and it takes all of us, partnerships in different sectors of our economy, be it government, the business community, and as the mayor said, leaders like yourself finding your voice and saying, this is the Boston we want. So Mayor Walsh, once again, thank you for being the leader that you've become and for driving this city forward in the way that everyone in this room wants.
Just a final note, go to cityawake.org/fun, which has the remainder of our calendar. We'll see you at the next event. Have a great day.